I see a lot of complaints online about Halo 5 and Halo Infinite. The thing is that like Halo 4 as a Halo game to me isn't that good, but it's also not that bad. I just think, and I don't really remember much from playing the game, and that says something about the game too. Halo 4 just isn't that memorable, but it did have a cohesive story, and it's a story that could have went somewhere and it didn't. Like, it just seems that Halo 4, 5, and Infinite kind of suffer from the same problem the Star Wars sequels have, which is an incoherent story from each movie to each movie, each game to each game. So that's a problem. But another problem, and I think this is the main problem that's killed Halo as a franchise, because again, everybody complains about 343 as a company. They complain about the quality of the writing, which is certainly an issue because that is part of the storytelling being an issue of why the series just isn't what it used to be. But there's a larger narrative problem that Halo 4, 5, and Infinite face that would be there regardless of what company owns the intellectual property, and that is Halo 3 was a really, really epic game. It was fantastic. Just the advertisements alone just were in a league of their own. Like, I remember seeing the Believe commercials on TV and just being like, oh man, I want to be part of this conflict. Like, I want to be part of this story. And it was just fantastic. It was just part of the cultural zeitgeist. And Halo 1 and 2 built up to Halo 3, and then Halo 3 was just fantastic. But it ended the story in a way that is very, very final. And there's a reason why Bungie didn't make Halo 4 and why they made Halo Reach. Because the story couldn't go anywhere after Halo 3, not for a long time anyway. And I think that's why they made the choice to make Master Chief go into hibernation at the end of Halo 3. He's kind of, going into suspended animation, but he'll be there for some future story. But the thing is that for the time being, there is no story that can be told that can surpass Halo 3. That's why Halo Reach is a prequel. That's why Halo Reach is completely different than the other Halo games. Halo 1, 2, and 3 is about lone wolf combat. Halo Reach is about team-based combat. Halo 1, 2, and 3 take place on all different places. It takes place on Halo rings, on Earth, on spaceships. Halo Reach is specifically on Reach. The story you go into and the planet is being destroyed. You know that none of the Spartans are going to survive, including your character. And you don't even have to be a Halo fan to know this because it's literally in the menu screen. It's showing Reach devastated, and it's showing the helmet of whatever design you choose. It's showing an empty helmet with a bullet in it, I think, if I remember correctly. So you go into this game knowing that you're going to lose, but what you're doing is important because it's setting up the victory for the rest of the games. We know what happens in Halo 1, 2, and 3. This game is about making sure that happens, and it's amazing. It's a truly amazing game. It's the perfect game that could follow Halo 3 because it stands alone. A lot of people like Halo Reach better than Halo 3, and that's completely valid opinion. So what about 343? Because the thing is that Bungie made the choice to make Halo Reach because they finished the Halo trilogy. They got to choose what story they wanted to tell, and they didn't want to tell Halo 4 because Halo 4, there was no compelling story to tell for Halo 4. That doesn't detract from Halo 3. And I think that's why they focused on Halo Reach. But the problem is that, Halo is a franchise that Microsoft wants to milk for as much money as they can get out of it as possible. And of course they do. Of course that's what they want. So it's just inevitable that subsequent Halo games would have to be made. And me, from a storyteller's perspective, I think Halo 3 should have been the end of that story, or the end of Master Chief's story, unless we're looking at prequels for a long time. I don't think the story should have stopped completely. I think we should have come back. I think the Master Chief should have made a comeback at some point in time. But should have been a long time after. And the reason why is, and I talked about this in a previous video, that the events of Halo 1, 2, and 3 were the culmination of this war that happened between humanity and this alien religious coalition called the Covenant. And these events are very epic, but they, exist in a universe that didn't have that conflict for such a long time. How often is it that an alien armada is trying to find the location of Earth and destroy it? Like, it is a very, very rare event. And what event can really top that? In Halo 3, you defend Earth, and that is a story, like, realistically, if this really happened, this is a story that would be told for generations, for hundreds and thousands of years, and would become legend. But the problem is, and this is the problem I have with modern franchises, is that it's always another story, always another story, always another story. And like, you can have more stories. Master Chief can be part of other events, absolutely. But nothing is going to top Halo 3 from a narrative standpoint. Not for a very, very long time for it to be believable. Like, the only way that it could be topped is if there was a second conflict between humanity and the Covenant, or some other species of alien. And that could happen, but like, for that to happen, it should have taken place, like, there should have been a big gap of time between the end of Halo 3 and the beginning of this second conflict. A lot of space and time should happen in the game world, and a lot of space of time should happen in real world. I talked about this again in a previous video about how George Lucas spacing out the original trilogy and the prequels built up all that hype for that new trilogy, and it worked. Whereas when you consistently have movie and TV show and whatever, one after the other, one after the other, one after the other, it just kind of robs the, I can't even think of the right word for it, but it's not as special. When episode 1 of Star Wars came out, it was this big cultural event, okay? Same thing when episode 7 of Star Wars came out, because it had been many years since we had seen any Star Wars movie. That was a special event too. But fast forward to now, if episode 7, 8, 9, if episode 10 came out, I'd still go see it, but I wouldn't be as hyped about it as I was about episode 1 and episode 7. There's something about having these things being rare events that is compelling and intriguing in a way that I never really thought about before. And I know my younger self would certainly be disagreeing with me about this. Like, me, the younger me, wanted as much Star Wars as I could get. But I think that's a mistake now. I think we can have too much of a good thing, or too much of a mediocre thing of something that should be good. But that's a topic for another time. But circling back, what could have happened with Halo 4 is they should have again set the story sometime far in the future from when Halo 3 took place, after the events of the commercials, because the commercials told the story of veterans remembering the events of Halo 3. This is again what makes this universe a little bit more believable, because it's kind of like watching, documentaries of World War II and listening to veterans talk. It's like, wow, there was this amazing, well, not amazing, but it was like this enormous war, and where all the world was at war, and now it's over. And we know like that happened many years ago. We know that these kind of conflicts don't happen very often. So with Halo, it just seems so believable that those commercials could have actually been documentaries in the Halo universe, and that a second conflict probably should have happened sometime after the events of those, like the commercial. And the thing is, enough time should pass that the events kind of become romanticized and legend, and people wonder if Master Chief was even real and that kind of thing. I just think the perfect start to what I think Halo 4 should have been is something simpler to Battlestar Galactica. If any of you have seen that TV show, where the show starts and the Battlestar Galactica, which is a big war spaceship from this previous war with the robot Cylons that took over or rebelled against humanity and tried to wipe humanity out. and the Battlestar Galactica is being decommissioned because it's been in service for so long and it's just getting old. And there's peace amongst the colonies. The Cylons haven't been seen for like 40 years or something like that. And the show starts with the world being just, you get to see what the normal world is like for everybody. And it's really cool. And then, spoiler alert, the Cylons attack again. And it's just that you can tell, they make it so that you can feel how epic this event is and how unparalleled this event is. Like, oh my god, the Cylons are attacking again. Like, people looking up to people who previously fought in the wars. Like, this transition from normal life to this conflict again, and then the conflict becoming normalized. It's really hard to explain, but it's, from a storytelling perspective, it's amazing because you're introduced to this world, this comfortable world, and then it's just turned on its head. And they should have done the same thing with Halo 4. Shown the world peace, show the world 100 years after what happened at the end of Halo 3. Master Chief is a legend that's basically forgotten at this point. And then have the conflict start. The Covenant come out of nowhere and humanity's just unprepared. Or maybe they're over-prepared. Maybe because of the events of how close Earth came to destruction, perhaps they've overcompensated and become hyper-militaristic. And that's the thing, is like there's so many different directions that the story could go. I'm not going to pick a direction because, I mean, for one thing, I don't know that much about the lore, but all I know is that there's a ton of directions that it could go, and it should start with there being no conflict and everything being cool, and then the conflict happens, and then you're thrust into this new story. And it could involve searching for Master Chief because Master Chief's been gone. And is he even alive? Is he even out there? You have to find him. That would be really cool. Or, of course, Halo game, like the protagonist is Master Chief. So perhaps Master Chief is woken up and then finds himself in the middle of this second conflict that I've just been talking about. But the big point is that for the story to be as epic as it was in Halo 3, there needs to be both time passed in real life and in the Halo universe. And you need people to get kind of thrown into this world before things get too crazy to just truly build up the hype of this is an actual big deal, that this conflict is something else. And you can do other things too, like maybe have the Earth destroyed or who knows what, but things to set it apart, also to make it epic. Because the thing is that if you don't do this, then either the story that you're going to have, and this is where I think, and I can't say for certain because I haven't played Halo 5 and Infinite, this is where I think they went wrong, is that it seemed, at least with Halo 4, is that they're trying to up the ante with because I know they had the Forerunners involved, and like Cortana going through rampancy, like dying or whatever was happening to her, and it just seemed like Halo 4, they're trying to one up, like trying to make the scope of the conflict in Halo 4 greater than the conflict of Halo 3. Because every movie does this. Think about I don't know if you guys have watched The Office, but there's a funny scene where Michael Scott talks, like he gets a second job and he's just talking to all his coworkers about the Die Hard movies, about how the first one is just about an average cop just dealing with this crazy situation. And then by like a few movies later, he's jumping into a helicopter on like a motorcycle, and how like each movie just tries to like up the ante. And that's what I see so often in movies and TV shows. And it, like, to me, it doesn't work. It's what I said earlier in this video, that it cheapens and lessens previous games in the franchise, and it ruins the integrity of the story in and of itself. Because, like I said once I said before, and once again I'll say it again, Halo 3 just can't be beat. And like Halo 4, they I don't know what the conflict was. I think it was something like the Forerunners were coming back, and humanity's at stake, or the universe is at stake. Like, who knows? I can't remember, and I didn't look it up on purpose because I just kind of want to go into this, with the point of, I remember Halo 1, 2, and 3, and I don't really remember Halo 4. And that says something. But back to what I was saying before, like, if I remember correctly, they're trying to create a conflict that is larger in scope than Halo 3, but it just doesn't sit right. It just doesn't hit the same way. They did things so perfectly in Halo 3 that it's like, I actually feel like I'm part of this conflict to save Earth. And now Halo 4, it's like, I need time to breathe. Now I'm in this other conflict, and all this other conflict's going on, and I just don't really care about. Now that's an if they tried to make the conflict greater than Halo 3 conflict. Now it's possible that it's lesser than, which is really where the direction that the stories have to go. Like, if you can't top Halo 3, then you just need to tell a different story, and it's just not going to be as interesting. And I think that's what happened with Halo 5 and Infinite. At least that's what I'm guessing based on the story based on videos I've watched on YouTube. I don't know. It just seems to me that Halo 1, 2, and 3 were intentionally well-written stories that Bungie wanted to convey to people. Same with Halo Reach, and I can't really remember Halo 3 ODST, but I'm assuming it's the same for that game. Halo 4, 5, and 6, or 4, 5, and Infinite was, they had to tell a story because they had to make these games, but there really wasn't a proper story there to tell, so they just did the best they could and slapped together some stories that were not really all that coherent with each other. So that's my long rant about that. I do think that they could have told another story that was as good as Halo 3, but it takes a lot of setup and it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of real world time, an absence of Halo games, to get people kind of missing and craving it again, and then telling a story where, okay, so we're returning to this universe. It's been 100 years. It's been a pretty boring 100 years, or maybe it's been 100 years of just conflict amongst the humans in this hyper militaristic society that's trying its best to prepare itself for another conflict, but whatever it is, whatever way they went, we get to see what the universe was like before the second conflict happens. We get to be part of this universe and get to see the universe turned on its head when the second conflict inevitably erupts. And from that point, you can tell once again a story about the Earth being in danger, or the Earth being destroyed and humanity now having to flee to some other world. So that's about that. In my other video, I talked about how they could have other Halo games to kind of build the story of what happens between Halo 3 and what should have been Halo 4. And I still think that would be cool. It would be really cool to see a game like a terraforming game where you kind of colonize Reach or some other planets, and that would be really cool. Maybe you could have a survival horror game in like a lab where the UNSC or whatever military government takes over after the events of Halo 3, and maybe there's that secret lab where they're experimenting on the Flood and something goes wrong and you've got to contain this outbreak before it gets outside of the lab. Maybe you got to get out of the lab. Could be some alien, it could be like some alien isolation type game. There's a lot of cool stories you can tell in that universe that are interesting, that are separate from the main conflict, that just flesh out the universe more. But the thing is that all of those games ultimately have to be unnecessary for a mainline Halo game, so that you don't need to have played these games to be able to understand the next Halo game. Because again, that's the problem that Halo 5 had. They tried to get you to read all these books, all these, watch this movie. I think there was some kind of movie you're supposed to watch and read all these books. It's like, you shouldn't need that to play a game. I think, so to backtrack, I think there should have been other games potentially to tide people over until the main series continues, but those would not be necessary. But they would build up the universe and flesh it out for those who want to be part of the universe, and to satisfy Microsoft so that games are continually coming out. Now, that's what I think should have happened between Halo 3 and Halo 4. What I think Halo 4 should have been. But what should they do now? Because that's not what they did, and they've got Halo 4, Halo 5, Halo Infinite. I can't truly say, because once again, I haven't played the campaign of Halo 5 or Halo Infinite, but I do think that there needs to be a break. And again, basically they can do what I said before. There needs to be a break in time that we need to not see the Master Chief for a while. We need to not have any major conflict in this universe, at least not to the scale that it was with Halo 3. And presumably the scale that it is at Halo Infinite. We can have games and stories in that universe, but they have to be different types of stories, different types of games, telling stories about conflicts that are lesser than what would be in the mainline series. And I literally think they just need to shelve Master Chief and Halo, like actual like Halo rings, for a while, and let it build up, let the hype build up, let the community crave another game, and just let there be time, flesh out the universe, and develop it in a way so that you have an interesting story to be told that's believable as much as a science fiction story can be believable. So that, yeah, sometime in the future we can have a great story that's believable for science fiction. And I think that's how you save the Halo franchise. So yeah, it's another rant I'd tried to plan this one out a little bit better, but I still was kind of jumping around a lot. So I'll see how this one goes, and hopefully that made sense to you guys. If you have any comments, please leave them below. And thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.